Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Arrow episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Arrow episode review. And finally, Arrow is back from its final Season 1 hiatus. We got 4 straight new episodes until the end of the season for the next 4 weeks, which is awesome. So anywho, finally, now that Arrow's back, I'm able to do my reviews once again, and this is my review of Season 1, Episode 20, entitled Home Invasion. Now, general thoughts on this week's episode. I thought that this was a decent episode, and I would probably say decent at best. However, that criticism is predicated on taste rather than on objectivity. This is what I mean. I say the episode is decent because there were a lot of things the episode did well, in my opinion. Setting up the tension building up throughout the episode that resulted in Diggle leaving Oliver's operation, that resulted in Tommy breaking up with Laurel, that pushed the potential rivalry between Oliver and Tommy. The Roy's quest to start looking for the Hood. All 4 of these things I thought were done very well. Oh, also continuing the rivalry between Diggle and Deadshot. 5 things. All 5 of these things I thought were done really well. And for that, I give the episode its credit. I give it its due. However, the manner in which some of these things happened, and especially the relationship writing in this episode, I'm sorry, but that's where I gotta be the most critical on the episode. So like I said, everything else was good. The relationship stuff was murky. But once again, my criticism of the relationship stuff in this episode is predicated more on taste rather than on objectivity. Do I think that it was awful? No. But I would have preferred to see it handled a little bit differently. So, let's just get into more detail about what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, my personal taste for relationships in a series of this sort is that I like when the relationships are built slowly and subtly, where they are mostly in the background. They are a subplot to the main overarching story. Now, Arrow, for the most part, has already done that. If you look at all the relationship work, you know, the relationship building with the love triangle between Oliver, Tommy, and Laurel, when you look at all the other romantic relationships in the series, they have, for the most part, been done in that manner, where they've been subtle little subplots throughout the overarching story of the first season. So, for the most part, they've done that. But my whole thing is, I prefer to see the relationships done in that manner because you effectively create and you make it more palatable to the audience when they can see how these pieces are slowly being brought together rather than them being crammed together or shoehorned in or nudged together in an awkward fashion that make it seem like they just don't fit. Make it seem like the ends just don't meet. They don't mesh properly. So that's why, like I said, it's like a puzzle. And I like seeing those pieces slowly being put together. Now, my issue with how the relationship has developed in this episode is I felt like this point in that triangle came too soon. I felt like they rushed it and they didn't give it enough time. Like it's kind of like they just shoved it off a bridge without giving it enough time to properly prepare itself for a safe landing. And this is what I mean. Now, I don't mind that the relationship was the bulk of this episode. At some point in time, that needed to happen, because we're talking about the last four episodes of the season. So that whole thing did need to get tied up. And I think if they didn't spend enough time within the last 4 episodes tying it up, then you would have gotten a bunch of out of place scenes, meaning that in probably the last 3 or the last 2 episodes, when you're wrapping up the main conflict of the season, you would be putting in a whole bunch of relationship work that should have already been resolved because you waited too long. So having an episode completely dedicated to the love triangles and all of that, yeah, it needed to happen. My thing is, I think it happened 1 episode too soon, and this is what I mean. What happened in this episode, like I said, it was the catalyst for pretty much, I guess you could say, the resolution to the love triangle. And that resolution pretty much being when Tommy broke up with Laurel, he removed himself from the triangle. So that was pretty much the resolution. Now, it's not the resolution to Oliver and Tommy's rivalry, to the static, the tension between those 2 characters. But it's not supposed to be, because I get the feeling that that's supposed to be ongoing. But this is what I mean. Okay. We found out at the end of the last episode that Tommy quit working for Oliver in favor to go work for his dad, right? And this episode opened up with Laurel bringing that to Oliver's attention, how she was surprised that he decided to go work for Malcolm. And Oliver said, yeah, that was kind of surprising, but what are you going to do? This is how I think they should have set it up. I think that this episode, right, should have been more about Oliver and Laurel becoming closer, because Tommy's new position with Malcolm was going to keep him away from her more. And so in Tommy's absence, her and Oliver would become more familiar, right? And then when Tommy resurfaces and he sees what's been going on while he's been away, then he can kind of blame it more on Oliver and not so much on his absence. And that would both fuel his resentment or animosity towards Oliver, which could benefit their rivalry later on, and it would also provide the proper catalyst for him and Laurel breaking up, because then he would legitimately see it as Laurel choosing Oliver over him. Do you see what I'm saying? So like I said, I think but keep in mind though, once again, the way they did it wasn't necessarily bad. What I'm talking about and what I just offered, that's all based on my personal taste. What they did wasn't completely horrible, but I think that trying to wrap this whole thing up in 1 episode did kind of, like I said, it just felt rushed. I would have preferred if they would have spread this out between this episode and next episode. Kind of have Tommy's revelation of Oliver and Laurel becoming closer, have that be the ending of this episode, so that next episode we could start off with Tommy possibly breaking up with Laurel at the beginning, and then him just fueling all his animosity towards Oliver throughout the course of next week's episode. That's just my personal taste on how I would have seen it done. That's just what I would have done if I would have been writing the episode. But keep in mind, everything they did with that love triangle and with Oliver's role in it, that was pretty important in this episode, because it also was the catalyst for him and Diggle finally, cutting ties. Because Oliver choosing to help Laurel's case over choosing to help Diggle out with Deadshot, yeah, that event needed to happen. And them cutting ties now, I thought was very important, because what's happening next week, the undertaking, the event we've been pretty much gearing up for and setting up for all season long. And now Oliver's going to have to deal with that solo. He just lost his right-hand man. That's pretty important stuff. But with that being said, okay, remember when I said how I would have set up the resolution to the love triangle being across 2 episodes? So a lot of you guys are probably wondering, well, Larry, since that whole since the resolution of the love triangle was the main point of this week's episode, what would have fulfilled that void? The hunt for Deadshot. I think that this episode, the main crux of this episode, should have been the hunt for Deadshot. It should have been Oliver and Diggle working to track down Deadshot and to bring him back to Starling City and to set him up to take him down. And since Tommy would be gone, you know, based off of how I would have done the romantic work, Tommy would have been kind of out of the picture for the majority of the episode. So that would have left the door open for Oliver to get more familiar and try to reestablish his relationship with Laurel, and that pulling him away from what he should have been doing with Diggle, trying to track down Deadshot. That's what I would have made the bulk of the episode around. Now, like I said, the whole thing with the kid, and I forget the kid's first name, but the Moore family being taken out by the assassin and all that stuff, I actually didn't mind that. I thought the assassin was pretty cool. How he was real adamant about cutting all ties and making sure that no one who had ever saw his face was still alive. And how they did the whole embezzler angle and the kid who survives and that type of thing. I didn't mind that. I thought that was really cool. But like I said, setting everything up the way I would have done it, I would have saved that for a later episode. That's just my thing, because I thought it was good. I thought it was very well done. I would have just I would have saved it for a later episode, or in addition to saving it for a later episode, I would have made the subplot of the episode tying into the main plot about the kid being protected and all that jazz. I would have saved that for an episode to where Laurel would have been on the fringe of finding out Oliver's identity. Because we haven't had an episode like that in a while, to where Laurel could have been suspecting that maybe Oliver's the hood. We haven't had an episode like that, I think, since the first half of the season. So I would have saved that little story for an episode like that, where Oliver would have brought him into his house and would have been protecting them there. And then the assassin coming into Oliver's home and Oliver having to fight him off could have potentially exposed his identity to Laurel, since she was already there. Or to Mora. Or to Thea. Especially since Thea and Roy have decided to team up to find the hood. Yeah, that whole little setup would have been perfect for a later episode. So that's just my thoughts on that. But like I said, all in all, my main issues with this episode and with what they did with the love triangle and whatnot is mostly a taste issue. But from an objective standpoint, I thought they did a decent job at it. I didn't really think it was bad. I thought it was fine, and like I said, because it's setting things up for our conclusion at the end of the season. So take it with what you will. That's just me trying to be objective rather than being biased. I will say though, I can't help but have my bias come in regards to the flashback. I'm sorry, I just can't help it. I thought that the thing with Shadow and Oliver, once again, shoehorned in there. I just thought it was out of place. I thought, in all honesty, I don't think they did a good job really spending enough time in the flashback, especially with Shadow trying to train Oliver in archery. I don't think that was given enough time. And then how they got ambushed at the end, I was just like, what the fuck? Because I was almost sure that Yao Fei would have either been killed or imprisoned by now. But that I just thought was weak in this episode, which is why I said the episode as a whole I felt was decent, because I thought the flashback work in this episode, no, I wasn't feeling it. And And I don't even know if that's so much a taste issue, because objectively, I just mentioned, yeah, I just think it was written poorly. But all in all, like I said, bias and taste aside, and just going at it from an objective standpoint, I thought the episode was decent. Set up a lot of good things. My favorite part, though, to be honest with you guys, my favorite part in the episode, Tommy's conversation with the kid, trying to console him with dealing with his parents' murder. I thought that was really well done, and I thought, once again, that sets up so many interesting things with Tommy and his character and what could potentially happen with him in the future, especially once he gets deeper and deeper with working with Malcolm, how he'll kind of be torn between, these two roles of, the prodigal son and Tommy wanting to be his own man. So I thought that was really well done. But also, man, the stuff with Roy, the fact that Roy feels like he owes a debt to Oliver, and so that is fueling his search for the hood. And did I not call that shit in one of my earlier reviews? In my review of what was the name of the episode? The one when Roy got kidnapped. Did I not call that shit then? I called it. I fucking called it. And the fact that Thea is now going to be in leagues with him. Oh man, I'm really looking forward to how they play that whole thing. And honestly, I'm looking forward to having someone close to Oliver being in on the secret. Because I don't know how they're going to write it to where Roy's going to be able to discover the hood's identity without Thea learning about it. Or maybe they might play it off to, like, once he finds out, he might purposely keep it from Thea, because he wouldn't want her to know that her brother is the hood. So they could play it up like that. I'm hoping that they don't. I hope that Thea finds out right along with Roy. Anywho, so that's going to wrap up this week's Arrow episode review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week, and in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this week's episode, as well as some of your thoughts on the final 3 episodes wrapping up season 1. Later this week, I have the discussion of the week video that's going up on Friday, and then my Game of Thrones episode reviews going up on Sunday, and then my review of the Vikings season 1 finale will be up on Monday. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next time, peace.